Hey, what's going on, everybody? Stan Rada with you again. And today, I want to spend a little bit of time in Mark chapter 5. And if you can't tell, I've been reading through the book of Mark recently and particularly impacted by it. There have been some times in my life when I've followed Jesus where I just kind of get to that place where I think, you know what, Jesus, today you rest. I'm feeling pretty strong. You rest. I've got this. And I kind of get to that place of a little bit of ego and arrogance and maybe a little bit of pride involved where I kind of feel like, I think I've got this now. I'm finally getting the hang of what it is that Jesus wants me to do. And now that I've got that rhythm, I don't really need Jesus as much. I can take and I can run with this. And maybe you've been at a place similar to that before, where as you followed Christ, you were starting to get to a place where you felt like you had a pretty good handle on what it was you were supposed to be doing. And you just kind of started to drift away from Jesus just a little bit at a time, not because you don't like Jesus. It wasn't because I didn't like Jesus. It's really more about, I think I've got this. And because I'm in control and I've got it, I'm not as desperate as I should be for Jesus' help, His strength, His wisdom, His leadership, and I just kind of take charge of my life. There's this story in Mark chapter 5 of a woman who was completely not in charge of her life. And I think that she gives us a really good example of the type of life that we should lead. The minute we start to feel too comfortable with our faith, we should be reminded of this woman in Mark chapter 5. We're introduced to her. We don't know her name, but she's had a bleeding disorder for 12 years. She's basically gone bankrupt in an attempt to find a doctor who could heal her. She spent all her money. She's turned over every stone trying to find a solution to her bleeding disorder. One day Jesus is coming through town and she hears that he's in town, and we have our answer very early on in the story of the kind of people, the kind of followers of Jesus that we should be. Mark chapter 5, and this is verse 28. She said to herself, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be made well." If I can just get my hand on a tassel on the edge of his robe, if I can just touch his robe, the edge of a shirt, just a little bit of Jesus, if I can just get a little bit of Jesus, I will be made well. That is someone who's desperate. They're desperate for Jesus, just a little bit of Jesus, and yet in our day, in our time, sometimes we just kind of feel like, I've got enough Jesus, now I need to go work. Now I need to go accomplish the to-do list. Now I need to go and get all these things done. And we sort of let the desperation for Jesus diminish and fade out in our life. And that's about the time, months may go by, and then all of a sudden we're like, I am way off track here. You see, it's still not that we don't like Jesus. It's just that we're so comfortable in our faith that we stop being desperate for what God has for us next. Desperate for Jesus. Desperate for just a little bit more of Jesus. We're too comfortable. In Acts chapter 4, we read about these people who, Acts 17, who turned the world upside down. But the reason why they did is because in Acts chapter 4, the Bible tells us that they were men who had been with Jesus. That everybody recognized it. Everybody understood that the reason why the world seemed to be changing all around them was because these people were so close to Jesus. Close enough that they could just reach out and touch his robe, touch a tassel, just to be close to Jesus. So let me ask you the question. Would you say in your faith right now, maybe you're a little too comfortable? That it seems to you that you're comfortable enough in your faith that somehow God agrees with all of your views. Jesus always agrees with all of your views and everything you have to say and think, but you're a little bit comfortable in that you think you're good. Can I challenge you or encourage you to pray a challenging prayer? I want to encourage you to pray this prayer. Pray, Jesus, help me to not be comfortable. Help me to not be comfortable in my faith. Keep me on my toes. Help me to live my life in a way that every single day I wake up and I am desperate for you. Desperate for just a little bit more of you. Desperate for a word from you. Desperate for your presence. Desperate to be close to you. Father, help me to not be comfortable in my faith. Just give me a little bit more of Jesus. Give me a little bit more of your Spirit. Lead me. Help me to hear your voice more today than I did yesterday. Can I encourage you to pray that kind of a prayer? God, help me to not be comfortable. It is really interesting because that's kind of our natural rhythm. It's easy for us to get to that place of comfort and just kind of assume everything is fine and feel like we're in control and that we've got it all taken care of. And whenever you start to feel that, I want to invite you back to Mark 5. I want to invite you back to Mark 5 and to a woman who is absolutely desperate for a solution, absolutely desperate for Jesus, gone bankrupt in all things, and yet she knows if she can just get close enough to touch Jesus, everything will be well. And may I encourage you, pray, God, help me to not be comfortable in my faith. What would it look like for you today to draw a little bit closer to God, to get a little bit closer to Jesus, to touch the robe of Jesus and say, if I can just have a little bit more of Jesus, all will be well. Could I encourage you to not only pray a prayer of discomfort, but also encourage you to stay in Scripture today? Can I encourage you to pray the prayer of discomfort and then get into Scripture and say, God, what is it you have for me? Whatever it is, we can face it together. I can face it with you. I just need a little bit more of you. May we not be too comfortable in our faith. And may we turn the world upside down in our discomfort as we pursue Jesus, as we are desperate for Him, and as we get daily just a little bit more of Jesus. I pray you'll experience that in your own